We are back to integers today, and we are going to multiply and divide integers for today's lesson. This is section 1.7 in your book. Now, just like when we add and subtract, there are certain rules for multiplying and dividing. Now, I want you to, in all this, think about the fact that a negative sign means opposite. So, if you look at the first answer, if there are an even number of negative factors, the answer is positive. So we know that obviously 1, 3, and 5 are odd numbers, 2, 4, and 6 are even numbers. And if we have an even number of negative signs, which is 1, 2, so we're down here at 2, we have an even number, the answer is going to be a positive number. All right, if we take a look at the next one where we're down here, if there are an odd number of negative factors, the answer is negative. So here there's only one negative 2 and a positive 3. So since there's an odd number, their final answer is going to be a negative. Now that's one way to remember it. If we apply that to our first example, it's a little more involved because we have a negative 4, which is the first thing we have to do, times a 5, because we're going again left to right for order of operations. So that's going to be negative 20. At this point, we're going to multiply that by negative 7. So here we only had one negative. This was a positive, this was a negative. It was odd number negatives, so our answer was negative. And now we have two negatives because we have negative 20, which was our answer from this part, times negative 7. So it's a negative times a negative. There's two negatives. We're going to have a positive 140. The same goes for division. Here we have one negative and one positive. 25 divided by 5 is 5, but because there's an odd number of negatives, it's going to be a negative 5 for your answer. Now, I've shown a couple of you this already. Let's just make a tic-tac-toe board. You can also find this in your stream. This is something that you can use to multiply anytime you want. If you want to write this down on a park test and commit to memory, you can just put this down. It'll always work for you. So if we put pluses across the diagonal and negatives all everywhere else, any direction you go, you'll get the proper answer. So let's look at example 2. 25 divided by a negative 5. So this is a positive divided by a negative. So we're going to go positive divided by a negative. So let's go anywhere on a chart. If we start right here, a positive divided by a negative equals a negative. You can go any direction you want, and that will give you the answer. If we go this way, a positive divided by a negative gives us a negative. The same goes for multiplication. Let's look at our first example up top. We had negative 4 times positive 5. If we do that, let's find a negative sign. Here's one. So we start at negative 4 times positive 5 equals a negative 20. So you can use this as a reference whenever you're dividing and multiplying with negative numbers. All right, here's a couple of examples here. There's two ways to check this. First, we can say there's an odd number of negatives, so we know our answer is going to be negative. 8 times 9 is 72. We can also do our tic-tac-toe board. Positive, 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 negatives everywhere else. And we're going to have a positive times a negative. So again, positive times a negative is going to be a negative. How about this one? We have a negative divided by a negative. So we're going to go here. Negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. So our answer in this case is going to be a positive 7. Use either of these strategies. Here there's two negatives in this one. It's an even number of negatives, so our answer is positive. Use either one of these strategies when you're doing your work today.